All right, the time is 7:30. I'll now call this meeting of the Board of Selectmen to order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Would everyone please rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. The next item on the agenda this evening is the approval of the minutes from our regular meeting on June 1st. Has everyone been able to review those minutes? Mm-hmm. And if so, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion we approve the minutes.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any errors, changes, omissions on that?
You look good.
Seeing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. Next item is the acceptance of tonight's agenda. I have one change under communications and correspondence. I'd like to have, we have with us on Zoom this evening, Joan Nichols, who's the executive director from the Connecticut Farm Bureau Association. And we also have Nathan Bondar. Am I pronouncing that right? Okay. Who's going to speak regarding the Housing Authority. So we're going to switch those around. So I think Joan will go first and Nathan will go second. So with that change, do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I make a,
Okay, John, and then second, Sean. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. All right. Under communications and correspondence, I do have an announcement to make this evening. I heard some very good news this evening from the developer at Brainerd Place, and Dan Bertram has let me know that they have officially closed on the financing for Brainerd Place. And this is a big deal for us because this is, a lot was contingent on this financing. Merging the parcels. They now will be able to come down to Town Hall tomorrow. He said they'll be at Town Hall tomorrow for the building permit, and we are moving ahead with Brainerd Place. So this is very good news, and I'm very excited. I know a lot of people have been patiently waiting for a long time, but we certainly made a big step forward this evening, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens next. All right, communications and correspondence. I do want to highlight that our Portland High School team won the golf state championship. That is, again, right? So congratulations to them. We will do a proclamation and we will do a acknowledgement for them. Typically, I was talking with Michelle in Town Hall, and typically we do that. I guess this is a regular occurrence now, so we have a schedule, and this when we win the golf state championship, we recognize the team in August, I believe. So stay tuned.
They've had a little banquet or whatever. I've been to the last two of them, so it's nice. They recognize everyone. So
We heard the sirens the other night and said, boys must have won again.
It's always good to hear.
Good to hear.
So congratulations to them. All right, so we can move on. With us, as I mentioned, is Joan Nichols. Joan is the executive director of the Connecticut Farm Bureau Association. I asked Joan, I had reached out to Joan just in regards to the right to farm ordinance that the Board of Selectmen has been discussing. Joan knows all about it and generously agreed to join us this evening to talk a little bit about it and maybe answer any questions that the selectmen have about it. So with that, hi Joan, how you doing?
Good, how are you? You can hear and see me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Well, thank you. Mr. Curley and the Board of Selectmen, thank you so much for inviting me this evening. One of the roles that I play in Connecticut Farm Bureau is to help municipalities with initiatives to help agriculture in their communities. One of the initiatives that about 30 or so municipalities in the state have looked at is a right to farm ordinance. So a little bit about the right to farm law and the right to farm ordinance is in 1981, the state of Connecticut enacted a right to farm law. The reason for that is with increased encroachment of residential development against our existing farms, I felt there was a need to have some sort of a law that protects farmers from what we typically call the nuisances, quote unquote, in agriculture and farming, which is noise, dust, odor, we say mild forms of water pollution, and DEP gets involved with that, and then mild forms of what we call pesticide overspray. And all of that is provided, protects the farmer, provided the farmer is following generally accepted agricultural practices. The operation needs to be in place at least 1 year before the operation can be potentially protected under the law. The most important thing about the law is that it gives sort of singular oversight as to whether a farm can be protected under the law or not, and if the farm is following general agricultural practices, that all lies with the Commissioner of Agriculture at the state level. So that law is in every town in Connecticut, and it's been in place since 1981. The town that passed the right to farm ordinance is what it really does is it's a policy statement that the town is supporting local agriculture in your town. And Mr. Curley and I had some discussion about this. And there's a myriad of state laws out there that are there to help farms, but sort of out there, there's state laws. And oftentimes when a right to farm issue comes up related to some sort of a nuisance complaint, the initial reaction from the municipality, and rightfully so, is to go to zoning, to go to the Wetlands Commission. Like, this, you know, many towns are not equipped to handle, questions or issues related to farming because farming is a little bit complicated. And as many of you I'm sure are aware, if there's a neighbor that's particularly aggrieved or feels they're aggrieved by the activities of a farm, they can be somewhat persistent in town hall, and I'm sure you've encountered some of this. So the right to farm ordinance, sort of the town theoretically should look at this and go, this is great, we set a statement, but let's look at where this issue is and where this complaint is coming in. Oh, look, this is what it is. Let's just take this right to the Commissioner of Agriculture. And I think sometimes we feel that it sort of helps a municipality with some guidance on what to do with farming issues that they may not be experts on, so to speak. And I think there's somewhere between 25 and 30 towns in Connecticut that have passed ordinances, and I did provide that Excel list to Mr. Curley, and also 2 or 3 ordinances that have already been adopted by towns in Connecticut. So, and the other important thing about the right to farm law and the right to farm ordinance is this is equally as important for the non-farming community as it is for farmers. Is number one, it's sort of not a get out of jail free card, so it doesn't mean that farmers are no longer have to comply with zoning or building codes or building permits or public health codes. None of that. So, you know, neighbors and sometimes non-farming community members of the community say, oh my gosh, well the farm's gonna be able to do whatever they want, and I live next to a farm and I don't feel like this is protecting my interests. And then likewise, it's important for the farmers to understand that this does not override local zoning or take authority from any other commission already in town that's been deemed authority either by state statute or within your own municipality. So I guess with that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Joan. I'll open
You're
up.
welcome.
I know there were some questions, right?
Hi, this is Ralph Zampano. I have question, because I'm just trying to get your feedback on it. I know that we talked to the gentleman who had brought this up as something for us to pursue. He talked about, well, we have sometimes a situation where farmers or people trying to, you know, exercise this right are getting sued outside, I think, outside, as civil suits. Are you aware of the frequency or what happens in these cases? You have any sense of that?
I do not, because obviously it's Connecticut Farm Bureau, we're a private nonprofit advocacy organization. I would not be privy to any of that information unless one of our farmers or one of our members came to me and said, this is what I'm dealing with. And of course, like anything else, the devil is in the details. So, is it truly being sued over a right to farm issue, or are there other, details and complexities? Well, I don't feel those.
Okay, thanks.
Welcome.
This is John Dillon. I have a question. I was trying to read on the statute and some of the information and some of the different things that have happened over years. And I understand that this law really came about to try to enforce and reinforce a farmer's right to farm, and to give them that backup that they may need in certain cases. The discussion that we had last meeting got into obviously we have a few large farms in town, but we have a lot of folks that are raising within the guidelines of regulations, raising chickens or whatever in a very small neighborhood lot in their property. Does this law take into account those different sizes, what would constitute a farm or not? I guess if somebody had a 1/4 acre lot and was trying to farm it, I guess you could call it a hobby farm, would that fall under the same guidelines as a larger farm under this law?
That's a really good question, and we're constantly challenged with what is the scale of farming and what's a farm and what's not a farm. I really think that would be a question for the Commission of Agriculture, because ultimately, if there were to be an issue that come up, something that's going to land with the Department of Agriculture. This is just strictly personal opinion. It's not any official opinion or legal opinion from really anywhere. But if you think back to the fact that the law was passed in 1981, in our opinion, it was really put in place to help farms that are in production, what we call production agriculture, and are earning some or all of their household income from farming. Because the last thing that you would want is to have a farm put out of business because of a nuisance complaint when the farmer is doing everything they're supposed to do. So I think with the smaller, sort of backyard chicken operations, that type of thing, I guess that would be up to the authority of the commission to determine whether this is a bona fide farming operation or not. Some towns have passed zoning regulations to allow for small backyard chicken operations, or for somebody to have a small amount of livestock on a smaller lot, and that's usually handled by zoning. But should a complaint come in, I think that still has to go to the Department of Ag. So I don't know if I can answer.
Thank you. That helps.
Welcome.
What else? But Joan, just to be clear, the right to farm ordinance is it's just upholding what's already in the statute, correct? So that doesn't supersede the town's zoning laws. The farm would still have to comply with the town zoning, correct?
Absolutely, right. All it is really a policy statement, and I'm not diminishing the value of a town making a policy statement to support local farms. The reality of it is that the right to farm laws in 169 towns in Connecticut, whether you choose to adopt it or not. I think it just helps provide direction. One of the things that you may want to consider doing is reaching out to some of the towns that on that list see how it's affected or not affected their ability to respond to questions or complaints about farming in those towns. Colchester, for instance, would be a good, that's not far from you, that would be a good town maybe to talk to. And you're absolutely right, it doesn't have, does not supersede zoning regulations or building code or building permits or, wetlands regulations, all of that still applies.
Thank you. That's a great idea. I think I can reach out to some other towns and see how.
Yeah, you may want to check Mansfield, Colchester, there's a whole.
Yeah, I have the list right here. I'll share it with the selectmen. Have you received it yet? If you haven't, I'll send it to you.
Don't think I
But I'll read it later because I do have that list. Thank you, Joan. Does anyone have any other?
And Lebanon especially, Lebanon is one of the biggest farming communities in Connecticut, but there's still a lot of residential development. Lebanon, Chester might be a good resource for you. So.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you so much for your time, Joan. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome. And the only thing I would just caution, if you were to develop an ordinance, it's really imperative that you mirror the state statute. I did mention there's one town on the list, New Milford, that sort of branched off and attempted to do more things with the right to farm ordinance than it's really intended for. One of those was to give authority for overseeing the right to farm law to a local commission of volunteers. And I think there's also something in there about farmers' ability to comply or not comply with zoning. And I think it's all well-intentioned, but when you start to conflict with state statute, the authority granted to a higher authority like the commissioner, you could run into problems when you try to enforce it.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you so much again. Really appreciate it. And we will continue our discussion later in the meeting on this and probably again at an upcoming meeting as well. So thank you, Joan. Appreciate it.
Anytime, my pleasure. You have a good evening.
Thanks,
You too.
John.
Thank you.
All right. I think that was helpful, right? Answer some questions.
Yeah.
So, all right. So next up on the agenda, under communications and correspondence, we have Nathan Bondar is here, and so you can come on up, Nathan. I met with Nathan, and Alan Harris is here from the Housing Authority as well, and we're here to. I had a presentation that Nathan went through with me, and I believe the Housing Authority has already taken action on this. Is that correct? Yeah. So. Thanks, Sue. Yeah. All right. So.
Okay. Thank you, everybody, for having me this evening. Acknowledge the presence of Al Harrison, the Executive Director of the Housing Authority, and Ms. Sue Malecki, the Chairperson of the Board for the Housing Authority. So we're here tonight. We wanted to, get out at the forefront to just, we wanted to share some exciting news with the Housing Authority and the developments of, what we've been working on and heading. This is a process that we had started actually right before COVID, and COVID hit, so we got a little bit stalled, but the Housing Authority is now excited to hopefully move forward. So to make a long story short, my name is Nathan Bondar. I'm with LITech Development Group. We're an affordable housing consulting development company. We work with groups of all shapes and sizes. We do have a niche working with housing authorities. We're working with about a dozen or so housing authorities just in the state of Connecticut alone. We're a national company working with housing authorities throughout the country and other clients. So with that being said, I guess we were retained by the Housing Authority to assist them in potentially heading into a process of what we like to call repositioning. So I guess I'll take a step back and give you a real quick overview of what this entails. But basically, the Housing Authority right now, the way it's set up, is set up as a public housing authority, which operates under Section 9 of the U.S. Code. It's called Section referred to.
Nathan, can
Sure.
we just pause for a second, because I don't see any. Is the sound on? Are people able to hear this? We have a problem with our Zoom. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No worries.
I just want to, I don't want people to say,
It's streaming,
It's-
fine,
but Zoom seems to be blacked
yes,
out.
I may have to reboot the computer. I don't know if you want to do that, because that happened the other night at Board of Ed meeting.
Yeah, if you don't mind, because I think that's important for, you know, everyone to be able to see. I don't want, you know,
Okay, just reboot here.
yeah, sorry about that.
No worries, no worries.
Technical difficulties.
You're gonna love it. The past 2 years, we're all used to these.
Right. I mean, I'm watching you talk and I'm looking at a black screen here and I'm saying, uh-oh. Yeah, I know, because then next thing you know, people are, I guarantee.
Then they're texting.
Then they're texting.
You.
Yeah.
Oh,
Elwin.
Elwin says sound is okay.
Yeah,
but-
sound is okay, no, it's, I mean, we're streaming fine, you know, and we just have to go over to YouTube. I'll reboot the computer.
Okay,
All right.
yeah, we'll just hang out for a second.
You have to restart. What's that? Not unless you want to restart.
Kind of like it's more people to kind of see like six.
Yeah, you know, we can't see it.
We can read comments.
So, last year was.
So, yeah, we got 4 people on YouTube and.
Don was always there and they were speaking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you can turn out.
Star Hill family, I set up in Holland.
John, was Tom still at Town Hall when you came over?
Yep.
Yeah. I told him, I ran out of time. I told him if his car was still here at 7:30, I was gonna make him attend the board's
I left the house at about 5 after 7 and the car was there.
Yeah.
One of my daughter's pictures from the trip.
Ooh, where'd you go?
Well, she was supposed to drive into Yellowstone yesterday.
Oh, and all that craziness, huh?
So they headed to the Grand Teton.
Did you see that video on the news last night where the rock was just falling down around a car in
So I
Yellowstone?
didn't see that.
No, I heard about
I
it. but
saw
Oh, my
pictures of
God.
the flooding.
They had the
yeah.
video, the car is parked there, it stopped, and there's enormous boulders coming down in front of it, behind
Sienna
it.
Rose was supposed to go into it yesterday. Yellowstone.
Really?
And then when you try to go to sleep, the next time.
But obviously they didn't, they changed their plans.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Well, she's going to see bears, she just go to Valley View.
She said she saw her day start off seeing a grizzly.
Yeah, I'm running on the airline trail this like afternoon, and I got like the AirPods in, and I'm thinking like, is this a smart idea running like with the music on?
They're not gonna bother you unless if you mess around with them when they got little ones with them.
Yeah.
Well, there's one
Yeah.
with 3 little ones, so you just gotta.
Yeah, just
not
stay
go
away.
fast.
But it was bebopping, it was on Strong's Avenue, then it was on Bell Court, then it was down on, by Petzl's. It must be walking along the riverfront, popping in.
Yeah.
What's the 45 grand for that apparatus?
What's the biggest challenge?
Which one? It's going into.
Coyotes, we got foxes in our yard every day.
Yeah, there's a lot of foxes around.
I've seen, a couple of years now, God, it's probably 10 years or so ago, I got up one snowy morning, there was a little bit of snow on the ground, the fog hanging.
Well, it's refurbished
Behind the
and
town
replaced.
hall.
This
There's
is
about
getting
10 deer out there standing in the field.
I think this is going.
They're everywhere now.
Yeah.
We never put anything in long-range capital for.
I've been seeing them hanging up in their parks since we built it there. I would see before you'd see a dozen of them out.
They were just waiting for a splash pad to turn on.
Maybe that's what it is.
So, they're gonna figure out how to use it.
Yeah, the bears are getting in houses. They're figuring out how to get in houses, so.
They can figure out how to turn on the splash pad.
So maybe the bears might be starting to.
If it's not one thing, it's another.
Well, they gotta see it once.
Yeah. What kind is that?
More activity in the splash pad, just find a video of bear turning it on. Everybody will be going to see your house.
It's a Freightliner chassis.
We had an ice storm about 5 years ago. And I looked out my door, and there was
Well, you know why? That's like because we had to go through the state bid to go. Yeah. The state goes.
We got one that comes through the yard every day. It walks the neighborhood, they said there's some kid somewhere, it's got a head and nest somewhere. But every morning it comes across from Waverly, comes across this main, and comes right through our yard.
Unless you was in
And
that.
it's, it's healthy, it's like a silver red, big fluffy thing.
I had one in our yard. It was not like
And I'd
started
start
because I thought it was a cat. It was in the bushes.
The fire trucks are not like
And he
Pierce,
ran out
Spartan,
just
and all
as much
those.
as I was started. He was
There's a reason,
not
you know,
looking
it's
well.
40, 50 grand cheaper.
This one was healthy. Red.
What do you know?
Well, I apologize.
No
Nathan.
worries, no
Sorry
worries.
about that.
Okay, so basically, HUD, I guess, we're going back probably about 10, 11 years or so, maybe slightly longer, the think tanks in Washington were trying to figure out what they should do with a growing problem with their federal public housing. So, I just want to preface, we're discussing the federal portion of the portfolio of the Portland Housing Authority.
Well, that's Chatham Court.
Chatham Court, yeah. Chatham Court, the 50 units of Chatham Court. So HUD, had to sit down, make a determination, have an issue. There's, as anything in life, things start to age, things. Things in Washington, we're trying to figure out what they should do with the problem with their federal public housing. So I just want to preface, we're discussing the federal.
This doesn't normally happen.
It likes me.
That's Chatham Court, yeah. So HUD, have to sit down and make a determination. What you want to do is review anything like rates are review the top rate.
What if he's got his on?
Oh, can you mute everyone? Yep.
Okay.
Three
Third
times
time's a charm, hopefully, right? So, HUD has been faced with this tremendous capital backlog. So they've provided the initial funding to set up housing authorities, mostly the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But like anything in life, things start to age and start to break down. And HUD had to make a determination, what are we going to do to ensure the long-term viability of our housing authority properties? So they have rolled out several programs. I don't want to keep everybody here all night. Just wanted to, give you the basics. But basically, what HUD made the determination is they want, so the way housing authorities operate right now, including the Portland Housing Authority, is they get a set fee every year from HUD for a capital grant and an operating grant. That number fluctuates based on the budget from the federal government given through HUD, through the different housing authorities, which goes up and down and can change yearly based on the government budget. So what these programs do is HUD allows the housing authority to lock in to a rent, which is a steady rent. So the way the housing authority operates right now, again, you never know how much money you're going to get from HUD, and ensuring the capital improvements in your budget going forward, it's a little bit challenging to say the least. So what HUD will allow the housing authority to do by participating in this program is they will allow the housing authority to sign a 15 or 20-year contract with HUD, in which HUD will guarantee the rents for the housing authority for the foreseeable future. Now, HUD had put out a bunch of programs, and several of those programs, HUD would give the housing authority these long-term contracts. However, those contracts were at a rate which wasn't a significant difference, pretty much in line with what they've been getting until now, which helps some housing authorities, typically larger housing authorities, participate in some of these programs, but HUD had noticed that a lot of the smaller housing authorities were refusing to participate because there wasn't enough of a benefit. So with that, HUD started rolling out a couple different programs for smaller housing authorities to incentivize them to make these conversions. And I should add, what's nice about these conversions is right now, the way the housing authority operates, they're restricted from accessing or encumbering anything on their properties. So right now, the housing authority owns, this federal property, 50 units. They are not allowed to get a mortgage, not allowed to get, encumbrances of any kind on those properties. But more importantly, with the fluctuation of the income the housing authority gets, even if they would be have the ability to potentially go, say, to a bank and borrow money against their properties. I always use the analogy, for any sort of loan. If somebody wants to go to a bank, you want a house loan, you want a car loan, what have you. The first thing the bank's going to ask you for is they want to see your pay stubs. Why? They want to know how much you've made, how much you're making, and how much you're going to make, because they're not in the business of owning your property or your car, what have you. They want to give a loan, get the payments, get with their interest, and move on with life. And with the housing authority, if you went to a bank and said, hey, I want to buy a $250,000 house, last year I made $60,000, this year I make $80,000, next year I might make $100,000, but I might make $40,000, they're not going to want to give you that loan. So that's really what's nice about this steady program with this guaranteed contract from HUD, federal government, which is a great contract, which locks you in and gives a steadiness to to an outside provider potentially. to provide that loan if necessary. But what's particularly nice in Portland's case, and many of the housing authorities we're working with throughout Connecticut and frankly throughout the Northeast and stronger markets, is that some of the newer programs HUD has rolled out, HUD is now providing housing authorities with fair market rents in their market for the HUD portion of the income that will come into the housing authority. So what that does in stronger markets, including Portland, including throughout Connecticut, Massachusetts, a lot of areas in New York and what have you, is that it really ups the game where HUD is giving more money to the housing authority to get that higher income, to potentially tap outside resources to make sure that they have the long-term viability of the housing authority in mind. That's, in a nutshell, how these programs work. But what's nice about them is, so right now, everything that a housing authority does has to be run. There's a field office in Hartford. It's run through DC, Chicago, HUD headquarters, to participate in these programs. HUD is, kind of releasing the training wheels, basically, where they're telling the housing authority, you have the potential, we're going to give you money, we're not going to have you encumbrances, and you have this opportunity to work together with your municipality to ensure the affordable housing is met in your community. And HUD's kind of looking at the housing authority to kind of fill that role. And the housing authority, together in concert with the municipality, now has that ability. We've done this successfully, throughout different communities, throughout the country. There's all sorts of federal resources that are available to the housing authority for what they're trying to accomplish, which really allows the housing authority to, meet the needs and goals of the community. And that's kind of what HUD's looking at. So now a big part of this process is, HUD, the housing authority, and I know it's always a little bit murky how the housing authority operates compared to the town, and how that relationship specifically works. But HUD strongly encourages the working together with the community, especially throughout the state of Connecticut, where there's always been issues of ensuring that you meet the 10% threshold, having enough affordability, and what have you. This is kind of a good way of accomplishing that goal and working together in concert. So we're here today. We want to make sure we get out ahead. We're just starting this process of where the housing authority is trying to go through this conversion process and get, from the Section 9 platform to the Section 8 platform, which I should have mentioned, but it's going to be a project-based Section 8 platform where the vouchers will stay with the units and the housing authority will, contain their income. But it's, it's a win-win and great solution, I believe, for towns and cities throughout the country to have this opportunity to tap these extra dollars, have the housing authority ensure the affordability or affordable housing throughout their communities. And so we're trying to get out ahead before we jump fully into the process, to be able to bring what we're doing to the town. I want everybody to be aware of it, and the housing authority is looking to work together in concert. So one of the things when we had met with Mr. Curley about was part of our application process as we go forward is HUD encourages a letter of support from the town, basically something simple along the lines of, we're aware of what the housing authority is doing, sounds great to us, we approve it. So we had discussed with Mr. Curley, he thought it'd be a good idea to apprise all the selectmen, which I think is always a great idea, and I think it's important we work together, about what we're doing, and hopefully, have that support letter, and we can move forward, through the process. So that's, in a quick nutshell, what we're doing.
Oh, Susan.
Could you please explain, Nathan, will there be any financial outlay on the part of the town to support this process?
Great point.
The question, I'm just going to repeat it, was will there be any financial cost to the town? Is that what you're asking? Okay.
Excellent point. Yeah, we're not coming to the town for any sort of money. This is money that's going to come from the federal government. The tenants, so the way the housing works, I guess taking a step back, is tenants typically pay, or almost all the tenants are paying 30% of their income. So HUD determines based on the fair market rent what that or going forward, or even now, there's a portion that HUD will pay, and then the portion that the tenant will pay. So what's important is, and we're going to have tenant meetings, as part of this whole process, and that's why we're all here, and what we're striving for. Tenant payments will remain the same, and this is money that's coming in from the federal government to help the housing authority. So it's not that we're coming specifically for a financial outlay. Things are going to continue. The housing authority is still going to be there, and we're going to continue forward as pretty similar to where we've been, but knowing that we're going to be able to tap this additional federal dollars to be able to better the community and ensure the sustainability of the properties. Good point.
I just wanted to touch on, when we met, you talked about what this would allow the housing authority to do as far as potentially purchasing other properties?
Correct, yes.
Do you want to talk about that and how that might help our, you know, our numbers? You know, we're below that 10% threshold in the town of Portland. So this could be an avenue to get those numbers up,
Yeah,
right?
great point. Yep, correct. So, you know, and as I slightly touched on it, but I want to expand on it a little bit. You know, so HUD is looking at the housing authority again, you know, to take over to work in concert with the town, you know, as far as the affordable housing goes, and having that potential now of being together with the municipality, but yet being a housing authority. The housing authority does have the option, and will have, you know, good cash flow to be able to take that money and expand. And that's really what a lot of housing authorities have done with these programs, and we're working on currently, which is converting, you know, kind of, you know, moving away from the public housing model to almost, you know, doesn't necessarily have to be, there's different legal mechanisms putting it together, but almost I'll look at it as a nonprofit real estate development arm. You know, so where the housing authority going forward will kind of, you know, have that capability and ability with the money, with the different resources to tap to expand. And, you know, and that is definitely a strong goal of the housing authority. I've talked to the executive director, the chairperson, different members of the board. You know, long term, that is where the housing authority is looking to go, to see where they can expand, how to fill that need, and, you know, work together with the community. You know, we've done successfully. You know, there may be an extra parcel of land, some houses. You know, that the housing authority, again, you know, using the aegis of them being, you know, that affordable housing component to be able to expand and, you know, expand their reach. So, good points.
Would this also include, the town is currently working on a facility study, taking a look at the number of buildings that we have in town that we could possibly be looking at, you know, repurposing some of these buildings. Now, say maybe one of these buildings had the potential for the housing authority to convert it to affordable housing. And it would be something that there would be no cost to the town to do this, but it would put us closer to, maybe even over, our affordable housing allotment in town to support our residents who haven't been able to afford to live here. And it is not anything that is going to cost the town any outlay of funds.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better, but yeah, you know, that's, you know, that again, that's how, you know, working with other municipalities, that's kind of the view. And it's really, again, that's why we're here. We wanted to be here early in the process, and it's about working in tandem. Obviously, we're gonna have to go through a process and take some time, you know, to go through a lot of, you know, bureaucratic hurdles that we have to get through. But yeah, definitely the long-term goal of kind of working in concert, and, you know, we definitely welcome that opportunity and going forward to try to figure out with the long-term outlay of the town to see what we can do to increase affordable housing in the community.
Funny, I mean, we just completed, and we just, the board just voted and passed an affordable housing plan. And this, unfortunately, didn't take any of this into account. You know, so it's kind of funny. It's a little topical. It's I wish that this was 6 months earlier, because we could have, you know, built that into our plan that we submitted to the state. But certainly, you know, I think we should keep an open mind with this.
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, as far as the timing goes, you know, everything in its right time, obviously, but I don't think it should specifically affect or not affect, you know, what we are moving forward. You know, one thing which is also important to note is, again, you know, the housing authority is set up to serve the very low income. You know, that's the public housing, but, you know, going forward, you know, that's definitely the housing authority's focus, and, you know, where they are and how they've operated with their federal portfolio. But, you know, we have been successful in other towns, and obviously it's all about finding the right space in the land and what have you to do that. But it's not limiting. So, you know, so for example, you know, we're working on some projects where, you know, we're combining, you know, housing with different income levels. So you may have, you know, you may serve the you know, the biggest need income status, but that doesn't curtail the housing authority from serving, you know, other classes. You know, so meaning, you know, this is, you know, and different levels, you know. So we've done successful housing for, you know, call it workforce housing, whether it's teachers, police officers, nurses, what have you, that just have a struggle, especially in Connecticut, finding affordable housing. And that's really, you know, something that we've been pretty successful at. So that's, you know, something else to take into consideration, you know, moving forward.
Nathan, when are you looking for that letter from, you know, the blessing, I guess, from the selectmen? Would you be looking tonight? Because how soon do you need that letter? I don't know if the board would want to do that tonight or want to, you know, think it over. You know, so you know.
I think we'd like to see the drafted letter and then so draft one up and then we'll approve it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we, you know, we can present it again. You know, it doesn't have to be. Some towns take the letter. You know, we can give you a rough draft, and some towns take the letter and want to write an 8-page, you know, letter about their affordable housing and their commitment. And you know, but it's really just, you know, the basics. We're aware of, you know, what the Portland Housing Authority is doing. We support their efforts, you know, and you know, we look forward to working with them or what have you. It doesn't have to be, you know, something extra. It's just kind of, you know, knowing that we have that support would be helpful to the Housing Authority.
Any questions?
I know you threw around numbers. What percentage are we at of where we should be at? At least 10%. Where are we at?
They told us we were at like the 8% mark.
8.2.
We're at 8.2. I was just curious. I wanted to put a number to that.
And she said we were one of the highest in our area.
What's that? We're one of the higher ones in our area?
We're one of the higher percentages in the area.
And we're still below the
Yes.
requirement. Okay. I didn't know what the number was. Thanks.
That's not affordable. No. That's right. That's market.
What, if you can, walk through, let's say, they do ideally in Portland, what you guys do best. Just walk through really quickly, like, what would be some of the steps that would happen in timeframes, like, you know, like.
Yeah, I mean,
Just kind of quick, like, if it happened in Portland, like,
yeah,
what would you
so
do?
the rough timeline would be, you know, we're in the process now of gathering, you know, the necessary materials to move forward with our application. So, you know, say we get the support letter, we move together the next few months. You know, so then it's really, you know, finalizing, you know, so part of the process and, you know, moving forward is also understanding the needs of the housing authority going forward. So it's, you know, having a needs assessment, which we had done on the properties, really make a determination about how much work the housing authority needs and will need for the, you know, foreseeable future, and ensuring that the financing is in place. One of the things which we like to do is, you know, these reports may notice that there are certain repairs that need to be done over the next several years. The housing authority's intention is to accelerate, you know, some of those repairs to really, you know, get them done now. So part of that process would be, we would be looking to take out a loan. So it's kind of, you know, a loan against the property based on the cash flow of the property to be able to do the repairs now, so the tenants have a, you know, a nice standing with them.
So the program allows you to accelerate that, get the.
Accelerate it, we're getting the money now, we can afford, you know, kind of, you know, so we're talking about doing, say, I don't know, $3, $4, or $5 million or so repairs right now to ensure that we have a good product. So there's just a lot of hurdles that we have to put together between, you know, all the different federal programs and, you know, getting the legal, you know, permissions. I mean, we're probably talking, I would say at this point moving forward, you know, getting the letter, realistically, I don't know, 9 months to a year, if I had to rough guess. You know, it could be a few months more, a few months less. You know, depending if everything just moves perfectly. But you know, pretty nice. Cool. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Alan Harrison, Executive Director of Portland Housing. I just wanted to try to add on to a little bit of what Nathan was explaining. Really, in reality, what happened was probably 15 years ago, HUD realized that they could not properly fund the housing authorities to maintain the sustainability of their housing authorities, especially housing authorities 250 units or less. So they basically started, that's when these RAD and these different programs HUD started putting out. I'm glad we didn't get into it early, because they've made a lot of tweaks to the programs and made it a lot better. So the early people kind of regret getting in early, because the people like Portland getting in later in the game are benefiting from all the, you know, the downside of how the program was being run. And also the rent is much more than 110%. So what they started telling housing authorities was, listen, you need to find out ways to generate, other ways to generate income for your housing authority. Because the capital fund, at some point, that's probably going to go away, where you won't get any monies at all for that. And like Nathan was saying, some years you might get 90% funding, 85%, 95. This year, we actually got 100% funding. So I got 155,000 in capital fund for the federal property Chatham Court. But what happens is, and it's been quite a bit of years now, is that gets rolled into the operations. So it's not even going in to do capital improvements of the property. We need it for operations, just to maintain the property. So again, so part of why I want to do this now is we can also leverage the property. We can get much more rental income for the property than we get now. You'll have a contract with HUD for project-based vouchers. All the residents will have the voucher. Their rent is not going to change or increase, and that voucher will go with them if they decided to move. So they're not locked. They're not locked in. They will have a choice. But I think once we have our meetings, our public meetings with the residents, and they see our plan going forward. Quite honestly, I don't think anybody's going to really move because they're in a good town, they're in a good school system, and when they see that we're putting money into the property, I don't think they're going to move. I know I wouldn't move. But what it also gives the ability now to leverage the property. We can get a loan. Also, a lot of housing authorities what they purchase what they call scattered sites. What that is in town, if a 3-family or 2-family comes up for sale, or if the owner knows that the housing authority is somebody to call, we can now have the ability to purchase that property, put in project-based vouchers, and we would be managing the property. And I think we all know housing authorities do a good job managing the property. So I think I think it's also a win for the town, where you're going to have a property that's kept up properly. Section 8, they're inspected yearly, the units and all that. So a lot of times you'll buy a property, you got to put some money into it. That's what we would do. We'd go in there, remodel it, and then fill it. So we need to, HUD is really not forcing, but they've highly recommended over the last 10, 15 years, find other ways to generate income for your housing authority. Because the days of just relying on HUD to fund you, it's not going to work. So a lot of, like Nathan was saying, there's a lot of housing authorities, a lot of executive directors that I know have been going through this process the last year or two. I wanted to start it when I first came here at Portland, but then COVID hit, so kind of everything got put on hold. And so that's basically where we're at now. And the exciting part is, like I said, we actually could be a developer. So if the town has land, or if the town says, geez, we do have a need, build whether it be an elderly property, it's something that we would have the ability to work with the town to do and to run it and to manage it. That's basically what we're looking for. So the key is sustainability and continue to give the residents there at Chatham Court a good place to live. That's basically where we're at.
Do you have major repairs in the near future for down there, or just?
Right now, like Nathan was saying, we did a needs assessment about 1.5 years ago, and what that does, it gives you like a 25 years out, and each year it'll tell you what you should do that year. Like 1 year, like year 3, it might have been the roofs, which they're not. The roofs are fine. But I'm just saying, it could be roofs 1 year, windows, siding, site work. So that's kind of, but we're probably during this application process, they're probably going to do another needs assessment. Yeah. They're going to want one even more current. Mm-hmm. And so that's what kind of gives you a good blueprint, and that's kind of what we're going to go off of when we do this. But my goal is we would like to, again, leverage the property, take out a loan, and get a good chunk of these things that need to be done in the next 10 years, get it done now. But no, as far as that goes, we just had, June 8th was our REAC HUD inspection. So we just had an inspection at the property, and it went well. You know what I mean? So no, the property's still good shape, but it was built in 1975. You know what I mean? And so there's things that need to be done.
For expansion, is there any room at the property for expansion, or would you think it would be all acquisition? Or
I'm thinking it'd be more acquisition. I don't think there's room on the property. I mean, because right now it's a Section 18. They call it Section 18 demo dispo. Okay, but we're not doing it. We're not doing a demo. The reason why we fall into that is because it's 50 units or less fall under this program, which is the probably the best program.
Yeah, I mean,
Out of all the
it's the
rap-
best
For the smaller
for them,
authorities.
basically.
Right. So we're not demoing it, you know what I mean? But what happens is HUD, again, they feel the property's obsolete. So that's where, so no, I don't think, because we're not at the level where I could have done a demo. They're not gonna do that, because that property's not in that much despair. You know what I mean? This would be a different conversation tonight if the unit, if it was in despair.
But there's not open space or room?
Not really,
Okay.
no. If we were doing a demo, yes, then we could have added units.
Yeah.
I would have done like a 3-story high-rise with cottages around it, but unfortunately, no. My acquisition would be, again, if there's 3 families, 4 families, you know, we would hook up with the realtors in town and say, hey, look, this is what we're looking for, let us know, look at them, and we would bid one. We could be a developer now, which is
Yeah.
nice. So we would bid on the property, and that would be the plan. Or again, if there's land or something, obviously we would have a discussion with, you know, the first selectman.
Any other questions? Well, thank you, Alan.
Thank you, everybody.
and,
I appreciate everybody.
Thank you, Nathan,
Thank you
and
very
Susan,
much.
thank you
Appreciate
all
the
for
questions
attending
and-
tonight. And then we'll leave it at, if you want to draft a letter.
We'll provide you a simple draft.
A draft, and we'll bring, our next Board of Selectmen meeting is July 20th. So we don't have, because of the 4th of July, we don't have that first meeting in July. So we'll bring it up for the next meeting, if that's all right with the board. Okay, well, thank you all for your time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Ryan, thank you for the invite.
Yeah, no, of
Thank you
course,
for the
anytime,
questions.
Alan.
And if anybody has questions, Ryan, you know,
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm available.
And I got
So
your
if
card,
anyone
Nathan,
wants to
yeah.
talk, okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So we'll move on to public comment. Item 6 on the agenda. I see no one
Nothing in the chat.
left in the audience. And, all right, so we will move to old business. I believe April is with us on Zoom. I know.
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, April, how you doing? We can see you. It's up to you if you want to put your camera on, but we can see. You just can't see us on Zoom for whatever reason. Just so you guys know.
Oh. Hi. So, it's been a busy month for us here at the Solidarity Committee. The first thing is the Solidarity banners that are on Main Street, and we just want to thank Bob Shea for all the help he did with us for getting those banners ready and getting them up, and for the other Public Works employees that helped put them up. And then last week we had our disability forum, and I would like to thank Ava Beeler, Ben Foley, Dana Ellsworth, and Laura Nedebetti. And for everyone else that came out, they shared their stories. It was really a great night, a lot of positivity, a lot of great things happening in Portland around disability work. And one of the only things that really came out of it was that people were really looking for more volunteer opportunities for people with disabilities. So that's something that's going to be on the Solidarity Committee's radar. And then last Saturday was the library celebration. That was a really great celebration for the community. And we had our Solidarity banner there, and a lot of people came over and signed it. And then coming up this Saturday is our big Juneteenth event from 11 to 2 at the Riverfront Park. We're going to have the DJ, Bounce House, Najee's going to be doing his poem. We have a high school sophomore, Dorothy Riley. She'll be doing a vocal performance for us. Gary Rogers will be giving a speech. The Historical Society is doing a piece about a local Black family. And there'll be exhibit tables, arts and crafts, yard games. We're going to have free food from Sarah's on Main that was generously donated by our plumbing and our power equipment. So that's going to be, our biggest thing of the month. And then next Saturday, the 25th, we're going to have our Pride Rally at Brownstone from 12 to 2. And we're going to have a DJ there, hopefully a photo booth. And then we're going to have Tony, I can never say his name right, Ferriolo. And he works out of New Haven, and he runs support groups for LGBTQIA+ individuals and their families. And then we are also going to have Mel from Q+ there. So Mel runs Q Plus, which is an advocacy group, and Mel was there last year also and did a great job. So that is what we have going on.
Thank you, April. A lot going on. You guys have been really busy and a lot of good stuff. So thank you to you and all of the Solidarity Committee members for all the work that you have put into this. And please, let us know. I think that's a great idea to find some volunteer opportunities for people with disabilities in town. I think that's really good. So I think we're all happy to help in any way we can with that. All right, we'll see you on Saturday.
All right, have a good night.
Thank
too.
you.
Take care. Boy, they're really doing a lot, huh?
Yeah, it's a busy month. June is a
It
busy.
is.
That's why it's Solidarity Month. So. All right. So moving on to, we have a discussion on the right to farm ordinance. I'll open it up. I gave you all the material at the last meeting. I think what we'll do is the next meeting I'll invite our planner to come, so Dan can come and we can kind of talk more about it. But does anyone have any comments or thoughts on what we've heard or read so far?
You speaking on? You saying that?
I was, sorry.
Okay.
You can go, Mike, I'll go after you.
I was just gonna say what Joan was talking about with when she was talking, I was more under the opinion that she's talking about production farming. And in town, have you heard anything about issues with the production farming side of it? Or is it more on the local, like John said, more the hobby farming?
I did hear, I received I wouldn't call it a complaint, but I received a notice from some residents in town that live near a farm, and one of the sticking points for them is the usage of the farm has changed, and so the farm changed use, and it's because it's changed to a different use. For years it operated, I believe, as a nursery for plants, and now they're doing other things with the property that's causing some disturbance for the neighbors. So they did reach out just to say, offer their point of view with a right to farm ordinance, and say, that they have been impacted in what they feel is a negative way by a farm changing use. And I did ask our consultants that we have because the right to farm, if you read the statute, it says for a farm that's been in operation for a year. And so in a farm that's been in operation for a year and then changes their use, what's that do to the statute? Is that still protected? And I didn't receive a real solid answer on that. So, but that's just that's one, and that's the only comment from a larger farm that I have received.
Nope. Thank you.
I think Ralph brought up, are you the one that asked about lawsuits or with these smaller farms?
Well, I think, I don't know if it was necessarily smaller, but it was certainly, I know when we discussed it at the last meeting, I think it might have been, briefly, I asked the question to a gentleman in the audience, and he said that these farms would get, sued in civil court. I mean, like, they go out, they see this, the right to farm to supposedly cover them, but then they'll still go after them because they're concerned about, they're saying, well, that I don't care, the smell is too much, I don't care if it's still okay within the, they'll still go after them, and so that's why I asked the question about that.
Well,
I mean, this obviously would provide probably more help for them in their fight, but it sounds like, I don't know if they necessarily still don't get, go through the struggle of losing money trying to defend themselves.
Right. And I think one of the key things she brought up was that if we have issues coming to the town hall, we know to go to the agriculture commissioner and not go in circles on our own. to start with. Is it zoning, is it wetlands? I think if we have complaints on this, we have a resource we can go to without spending a lot of our own time and resources trying to research it. So I think that was some good information she gave us tonight. Because we can put this in effect, but if we don't know how to handle it, it doesn't mean anything. Because anybody can, as you know, anybody can file a lawsuit about anything. Anybody can argue if we don't have the right answers. At least we can not say dump it, but we can push it up to somebody else that has the answers for them.
From what I read online, this started and continues, I think, to ensure that we don't continue to lose farms.
Right.
You know, you're absolutely right. I mean, one lawsuit could destroy a farm. You know, and I think there were other towns that have, you know, once they've implemented this, they've looked at other ways to help to reinforce and help a local farm to sustain itself. Whether it's, you know, to reduce the taxes on their farm equipment or whatever. Yeah, I was trying to think of the farms we have in town, and obviously Goddess is a large one. We have the farm on Ames Hollow, and we have that huge tract of land that the Goodriches along Main Street put into a farm lease, which I think Goddess now purchased. So, you know, there's a fair amount of property in town that's still farmable.
Right.
You know, and it wouldn't hurt us to do that.
So, I just want to read, I'll give you the list. Remember, should have sent that already, but here, the towns that Joan had provided me that have a right to farm ordinance are Bethlehem, Brooklyn, Canterbury, Canton, Colchester, Columbia, Coventry, Durham, East Haddam, East Windsor, Easton, Franklin, Goshen, Guilford, Hampton, Harwington, Kent, Killingly, Lebanon, Mansfield, Monroe, New Milford, North Stonington, Oxford, Pomfret, Sherman, Sprague, Tolland, Torrington, Warren, and Woodstock. So that's the list. And I think those are all pretty much, most of them are big agricultural towns.
Right.
in Connecticut, so.
So what I was gonna say was, and I did take a look at the town ordinances that you gave us, and 3/4 of them are pretty much boilerplate, same format. There was a couple outliers where they did something a little
Right.
different. I'd be interested to see the one that she had mentioned that they.
Milford.
Yeah.
Was it
There,
Milford?
I saw that there's a piece online about that. They actually had the minutes from the meeting. You know, and what I noticed in looking at these is that some towns that didn't initially bring in their P&Z commission, their wetlands commission, did ultimately bring them into the discussion, because you know, some of what the statute talks about is, you know, manure, but it also gets into pollution of streams and things like that, and use of pesticides. And I think that would behoove us not only for P&Z to be involved in discussion, but also in the wetlands to be involved in discussion. But yeah, she mentioned New Milford, and that there was quite a bit online on that.
So should we table this until next time?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
Do a little more.
Okay.
All right, sounds good.
And you said the next one, we can bring in our zoning enforcement officer to talk about it?
Yeah, I think we'll bring in our planner,
Yeah.
Dan Beret, who can come in and kind of, you know, answer some questions on this, and I think that'll be helpful for everyone. So, just as Joan was very helpful this
Yeah.
evening.
That was
very
good, thanks, Greg.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so with that, we'll move on to appointments and reappointments to boards and commissions. I think, Ralph, you might have one?
Yeah, I guess a couple weeks ago, we made an appointment, but the resignation had not come through yet, so we couldn't do the appointment. So I have to re-nominate Deb Calavas, or however you pronounce it, to be appointed as an alternate on the Youth Services Committee, which we already did, but unfortunately, we have to redo. So
is that a motion?
that is the motion.
I'll second that.
All right. Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Sorry. What's her name? I'll give you the spelling after.
Deb
after.
Calavas? Is that how you pronounce
Yeah.
it?
Deb Calavas, Calavas.
Yeah, there you go. He gave it. He gave you it.
Any other? I don't believe there are any others tonight.
No, we don't have any.
Okay, great. So we'll move on to new business. So in your packets, there is a resolution in front of you, and on a potential supplemental appropriation. Now, one of the goals and priorities that I have for as first selectman is to apply for grants that will benefit the town when they become available. There is a STEEP grant, a Small Town Economic Assistance Program grant, that was recently announced, by recently, a couple weeks ago. And with this grant, we've applied and we've used STEEP grants many times in the past. And this time they changed some of the rules with the grant. With this iteration of the grant, the town, Portland or any town, we would have to have a project ready to go. We would have to have the engineering done and the design work done ahead of time. And so they're also showing preference for a 20% match with the grant. And the grant is an award of up to $500,000. And so what I was thinking was that we could use this grant, we could apply for it, and I'm particularly interested in completing our sidewalks on Main Street. That has been going on. We've been working on that for a while, and this would get us a very long way there. I think it's a doable project. It's grant money, but we would need to fund the architecture and design. So there would need to be a supplemental appropriation in order for us to qualify to apply for this grant. So I wanted to, that's part one of this supplemental appropriation. And part two is that there is a need for a new SUV for the fire chief. With the fire chief is in need of an SUV, and there is one available that we could purchase if we wanted to, which would then free up another vehicle because our public works director is going to need a vehicle. And so this is kind of, they kind of go hand in hand. So while there is a vehicle available, our thought was that we could purchase that for the fire chief, and then our new public works director, when we find one, will then have the current vehicle that we have.
What's the condition of the current vehicle? Do we see it lasting a couple of years, or?
I think so. It's a 2012, so it's not, it's an older vehicle, but I believe that it still will last, for the duties of the public works director.
So it won't see double duty anymore?
It won't see double duty,
Yeah.
exactly, yes,
Okay.
that's true. So, I just I'll open it up to discussion. We will need a public hearing and a special town meeting if the board is in favor of this resolution. But I do think that we really should apply for grants as they become available, and I really want to get things done with grants. I want to do things. This will go a long way to completing a project that had previously begun by previous boards of selectmen, and we can follow through with that. It was funny that I was actually working on this when there was a post on the Portland community page all about sidewalks, and I thought to myself, boy, how topical, because this was in the works, but I'll open it up. What's everyone's thoughts?
I think it's a good idea. Like you said, as long as, if the opportunity's out there and we know we have a need that we can use the money, that's gonna continue a project that's on a lot of people's minds and needs to be done, we might as well just continue on with it.
And that's, I did read the post as well, and the thing that people have to realize that Main Street's a little different than the other sidewalks, because those sidewalks in Main Street fall within state right-of-way.
Right.
So ultimately, really the state is really responsible for those sidewalks. But obviously, we've approached them, and they have no future plan, I don't think, of helping us with the sidewalks. So our strategy has been using grant money in order to make our way down Main. So this would be consistent, I think, with what we've been doing for the last few years. So I think it's good. Obviously we've done that with the other projects where we got grant money, paid for the engineering design, and then the rest of the work is covered. So I think it makes sense to me as well.
The only obvious question I have is, this is different because they're requiring the 20% match, and the funding we're talking about, the 145 grand, we can swing it, right?
We can swing it. We can swing it from fund balance, and that's where this would come from. Tom has blessed this. He's not here tonight, but he did help me draft this resolution, and actually he was he is in favor of this. I'll say.
And I agree with you, Ryan. In this economy we're in now and forever, I mean, grants are the way to go. I mean, you really, if you can find the money. But somebody's going to use it if we don't, so let's use it.
Was that? The deadline for the grant is August 15th. So this was just announced, and I wish they announced it when we were doing the budget so we could have planned accordingly, but that's just how steep grants can come about. They appear, and I don't want to be left behind. I want to make sure that we can get the money that. And this is, so I think it's a great project. So with that said, we will need a motion for a public hearing as well as a special town meeting. And I'd like to do that, we have to do it by the end of this month to get it in the current fiscal year. So I'm looking at June 29th.
Ryan, I got one question quick. For the engineering part of it.
Yep.
Is that additional funding, or is that paid for out of this?
That's paid for out of this. So the engineering counts toward the match. So that's what we're using that for. So we're going to spend the design and the engineering, and that will help us to make ourselves attractive for the grant. 20% it's not mandatory, but according to the rules, preference will go towards those that have done that. And they're looking for shovel-ready projects. They don't want to fund something that's gonna, take forever. So I have Jeff Jacobson, our town engineer. He wants me to message him first thing tomorrow morning. He is working with Joe Dillon on it, and they're ready to rock and roll. We just got to give them the word, but we still have to have the special town meeting and a public hearing. So I'm looking at Wednesday, August 29th, and
June 29th?
August.
June 29th?
We're not there yet. June 29th.
And no time.
We could do 7 o'clock. This is a little different because we don't have a board meeting that night, so 7 o'clock for a public hearing and 7:10 for a town meeting.
Yep.
Okay, can someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Let's see, make a motion for a public hearing for the capital plan improvements set for June 29th, 2022 at 7 p.m. and special town meeting at 7:05 p.m.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Any discussion on that? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion passes. Thank you. I think this will be really good if we can get this and get going with this. The next item is something that we've spoken about in the past. It's been on our agenda as a follow-up item, and it's on our current fixed property assessment policy. And in your packet, I wanted to do something similar to what we're doing with the right to farm ordinance, where I provided you with our current policy, which was adopted by the Board of Selectmen on August 15th, 2012, and then revised on June 30th, 2016. And so I gave you a current policy. I also gave you the statute. This is the state statute on what is allowed in the state of Connecticut. Now, this has changed since we originally adopted this ordinance. The state has made some modifications to what municipalities are allowed to do, and I can highlight some of those changes for you. It used to be, when we passed this in 2012, that you could have a maximum of a 7-year tax abatement. The state now allows you to have up to a 10-year tax abatement. And they've also added mixed-use development as a defined use or application for this. So those are, and as in addition to that, they eliminated there used to be, in the previous version of the state statutes, there were thresholds that you had to meet, and then they told you how much of a tax incentive you could do. With this, they took that all away, and they really left it all up to the towns. So there's a lot of leeway for us in an ordinance. And so I think, in my personal opinion, reading through, because I gave you ordinances from Colchester, Middlebury, Derby, and these are ones I reached out to CCM to ask if they could provide me with ordinances, and these are the ones that they had available when they reached out to the towns. I think that looking at this, I particularly like Middlebury, and I also think Derby did a good job. Colchester's very vague, but if you look at Middlebury, they spell out specifically over the years, how much of property, how much improvement goes into a property, and then based on that, it's clearly defined how many years of an abatement or a fix, and then also what the percentages are every year. And so I think maybe we should kind of look at that. I reached out to our assessor, Rich Lasky, and he emailed me later this evening. I'll forward you that email tomorrow. It was too late to put in the packet today, but he also provided us with an example from Monroe, where he was previously assessor, and he helped draft that. And he gave us some pointers on what he would like to see, because speaking with Rich, he would like to clear this up a little bit and to make it a little easier. So I think there's a need to look into this. I think we can be a little more, have a little more clarification in what qualifies and what doesn't qualify. And I think that'll help people to maybe advertise it more, because we really do want new business. We want to encourage growth, and this is one avenue, one vehicle for us to do that. So really, take a look at the packet, and we can kind of talk about it next time. But again, what's everybody's thoughts? You agree we should look into this?
Oh, definitely.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's something that we definitely need to look into.
Yep.
Because there's a couple of the big concerns I had was, like you said, like with Middlebury, they have a scale in place so you know what you're coming into. Ours is just, you could have 3 different projects and you could have 3 different plans for 3 different people. And then you're gonna start saying, oh, you're favoring this project, you're not helping this one enough. And it could be the same amount of money, but we give them different percentages.
You have rules, you have a consistency, and you don't have a problem.
Yes. And with ours, one thing that didn't make sense to me was the lowest one for number, or letter C, you can have 50% assessment for 3 years. But when you go up to over $500,000, up to 3 million, you only get something for 2 years.
The reason for that, I believe, was because we took that directly from state statute at the time.
Yeah.
And that's when they had those thresholds that they have since removed. So we're left with this older policy because of that.
Yeah.
But that's where that comes from. I do want to point out Derby is in your packet. I also like Derby a lot, and they, in there, they require, and then we can talk about this, but they require approval only if the improvements would not happen without it. So that's kind of something for the town to think about. Do we want to encourage growth and say, you know, if we would only incentivize projects that wouldn't get off the ground without this funding? Or do we want to allow anyone who, you know, meets that qualification to be able to apply? I don't have an answer, I just, you know, thought I'd pose that. They also have different defined schedules for 7-year tax abatement, a 5-year schedule, and a 3-year schedule. For them, applications go to economic development first. Currently, right now, everything goes through the Board of Selectmen with this, and certainly Rich is involved, our assessor is involved as well. But, yeah. So I give you
Sounds
some more
good.
homework? All
I
right.
know, every time we come here, we walk away with homework.
Good, and I'll send you that Monroe, and I'll send you Rich's comments as well. I think it'll be helpful for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, great. So we can move on to refunds of excess payments.
Great, my turn. Let's see. Make a motion for a refund of excess payments for Eric Handel, $127.55.
I will second that.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries.
Motion for refund of excess payment for Eric Handel, $83.14.
And I will second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. All right, that's it. We can move to status and committee reports.
Yeah, I don't have a lot today. Couple of meetings got moved out or are happening after this meeting. I wasn't able to attend the Park and Rec because I was at the graduation, so I don't have any updates. I will reach out to Nate and look at their minutes to see if there's anything worthy of bringing to the next meeting.
One thing for Park and Rec, it might be old if you didn't make the meeting. How close are we to being finished on the park?
I know that the plaque we talked about was supposed to come in the next week or so. So I think, as far as I know, we talked about, I think Tom has gone through whatever he has to do to figure out what he has to do to close it. So hopefully we're close with that.
Once we get that plaque, we're able to go through it all. I think we're there. We just need to go through the process once it's done. And we have to go through our bond council. You know, but Tom's ready to go. Any other status and committee reports? I do have, if not, I will say, I want to announce that all the Board of Selectmen knows that we have a shelter diversion program going on right now through the town of Portland. This was started under Susan Bransfield. She had applied for a grant, and it's a really neat grant because this is helping you know, the homeless and those in need through the 211 program. And that grant was scheduled that we have I believe it's three employees and then one diversion specialist that are working on behalf of the town of Portland for the region. And that program was scheduled to end December 31st of this year. And we applied for and we received an extension from the Department of Housing on this that will be able to continue this program for another 6 months, as well as to provide funding for 2 additional employees that will help with shelter diversion for Portland and the surrounding areas. So this is a really great program that has now been expanded, and so I just want to thank the Department of Housing for funding this, because it's a worthwhile cause, and I'm glad that we can be a part of it. So that's good news there. I also want to, while we were in the meeting, I'll just let you know that I received a phone call from Captain Millardo with the Portland Police, and you're all going to be hearing about this as soon as you leave here and you go on, Facebook.
I was hearing about it as it happened.
And there has been a large bust in Portland that I received multiple complaints over the past months regarding activity on Airline Avenue. I brought that to the Portland Police. They have been doing and conducting an investigation, and tonight they were able to perform that raid and with the state police, and this is a very large deal.
Is that I understand it's down by Nolan Field, is it where the Whitmore Bain building used to be? The building right next to the driveway to Nolan Field?
I think so, yeah. And so really everything else is, the police will answer any questions, but this is, we're really thankful to the Portland Police for their investigation, and to the state police. And so if you saw the helicopter that was flying.
Text to me, what's going on?
Yeah, the helicopter was looking for anybody, But anyways, so that's really it, but I just wanted to announce that now, because it's really good, because we had to shut Nolan Field down. And now hopefully we'll be able to reopen that, to practices and.
Oh, you had to shut it down because of what was going on there?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Side note, 2 questions. Have we heard anything about the grants for the senior center? Was that approved yet?
It has not been approved. We are still in the process. The drawings, we submitted 90% drawings, and that was the holdup to, that's also with DOH. And we had to get 90% drawings from our architect in order for an approval for the grant. Our architect firm, Silver Petroselli, provided that a couple weeks ago, I think, at the end of May. And DOH has reviewed that. They had some additional questions. We've answered those questions, and they are in the final stages. I expect to hear that soon. I was really hoping I'd receive that earlier this week so I could have some more good news to share, but I expect that to be coming very, very shortly, and that's another great grant for the town of Portland once we officially receive it. But they have assured us that the money's there, and we just have to meet their qualifications, and we should be all set.
Okay. How about the high school track? Have we gotten official?
We have not. I've reached out to the state several times now, asking for updates on when I can receive a contract from the state to sign. That's what we need to do at this point in order to move forward with that track process, because without that state funding, we don't have the money to do that. And I have not heard back in my recent, they had told me that I would be receiving something by the middle of May. Here we are in the middle of June, and they haven't been returning my emails, so I'm sure they'll get to it, but that's where we're at now.
I hate to ask the question, is this one of those that has to be pre-reviewed by the Attorney General's office before it comes to the town?
No, that's schools.
Yeah, I don't think so. It's already been voted on, and it's a done deal. We just have to do the paperwork, and we're waiting on the state. So
have we gotten any estimates yet on what it's gonna cost or a time frame?
We have not. So we did put out for an RFQ on that. The RFQs came in, that's a request for qualification. And there was a review committee that looked through that last Friday, and they selected, I think, all 3 firms to go to RFP. So now we're going to be doing an RFP process on that. And once that happens, the RFP will have the information as far as the timing. timing-wise, we're looking at having the track completed by June of 2023. That's the time that we're looking to do. That's basically what they have told us. All three were pretty similar with their time frame on that.
Well, in June of next year or the year after?
23. So June a year from now.
A year from now, it would be completed.
Correct. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean.
That's faster than I thought.
Well, I think they're going to be even working on it when school's in session still. This is all, this is all. Many things can change, but yeah. So that's where we're at with that. Any other questions?
What's happening with the Riverfront property remediation? I think we're waiting till the end of the season.
Yep. Yeah,
so what's the status on that?
We're ready to go with the remediation of 248 Brownstone Avenue. Now, keep in mind, this is not a complete remediation of that property. It's only going to get us, it's going to help remediate 248. The other two parcels, 222 and 230, will remain as they are right now. And so we are looking, I met with Ty and Bond, who have been helping us through this process. And I don't have the number in front of me, but in order to remediate 222, 230, and to finish with 248, after we do this remediation, I think it's something like $2 million still to do that. So we're going to be applying for more grants, and I believe there's a September 30th grant that we're going to go after, but the remediation is still set. We're ready to go. Our company, environmental, ECR, environmental consultants and recyclers they're set to go. We're just waiting on the Brownstone Exploration and Discovery Park to close for the season so we don't interfere with all that foot traffic there.
Yeah, and just, I mean, the reason why, because I know people are going to ask questions, well, how come you said it was this to remediate? But if I recall, I'm doing that work is to really open up what the opportunity is, what you could do on the property. Right. I mean, you could certainly cap it and go home and not have to do anything else, but by putting this additional funding in, it opens up more opportunities of what you can do there.
Yeah, and we also have that RFP out for a business, a public-private partnership to come in and work with us and maybe help with that remediation effort. We're looking for a restaurant, which would be a riverfront restaurant here in the town of Portland, which would be really great to see. And so this is such a key part of our economic development in town, and we're moving forward. We're just have to take a little summer break on it. So, but we'll be back.
We have the sidewalks from Chatham Court up to High Street.
Yep.
Status on that?
The status on that is we're waiting for the engineering to come back from Jacobson, and I was told that we can expect that as soon as this week, by the end of this week. And once we get that engineering, we then have to send that to DOT, and that will take a little bit of time. Expect like 6 months on that. But the plan is if we can get the engineering from Jacobson this week, get that out to DOT right away, we can hopefully hear back from the state in the winter, and we can go out to bid, and we can get some good prices for the spring. So that's the plan with that right now.
Hey, there is one other thing I meant to mention, because Ryan, you and I were there yesterday with EDC, but they are talking about trying to do some sort of event or series of events potentially in the long term, but in order to bring people down onto Main Street and also to make sure that whatever they do, they're incorporating the businesses on Route 66 so that they're not left behind. So the strategy would be able to do events there, bring Route 66 businesses down, and be able to allow them to advertise and meet with the people as well to show what they offer. Because it's a little difficult to do anything on Route 66 with people flying, but certainly on on Main Street, if you have some sort of an event. So there was some good, it's piggybacking the discussion I had with some of the businesses from Main Street a few weeks ago. Now yesterday, DC was kind of going over it, and there's some pretty good opportunities I think that they're thinking about. So it should be interesting.
All right, any other updates? So we'll move to public comment. Debbie? Nothing in the chat? Okay, we will move on to general informal discussion. I just want to say on EDC, and we can follow up after Ralph, but I had a meeting with the Middlesex Revitalization Committee. It's the MCRC. It's a wing of the Middlesex Chamber of Commerce this morning, and they just received a $1.5 million grant from DECD for small business that can be used for small businesses. So in the past, Portland businesses have applied for loans from MCRC, and that program has now been funded. We were having dwindling funds, and we weren't sure if the program would be able to continue, but they have a cash infusion coming of, $500,000 will be administration, but $1 million will be available to businesses in Middlesex County for loans and
How will
grant.
businesses be notified?
Well, this is brand new, so nothing's official come out. I just want to mention that, because we just had an EDC meeting we were talking about this, and I said I have this meeting, and we had really good news on that this morning. So as soon as I get more information, I will share it so our businesses can get that. So, okay. All right. Anybody else?
I think we covered it all.
All right. I don't have anything for the follow-up items, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
You want to think about it, Sean?
No?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, John. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you.
I'm just saying.